Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Asif has said that Pakistan's objective is the same as that of the National Conference and the Congress Party, which is the restoration of Article 370. Now, we want to be clear about a few things. This is a point of divergence between the Congress and the National Conference, the two alliance partners. While the National Conference has pretty explicitly, in fact, mentioned this in its manifesto as well, that one of its first priorities would be to bring back 370, the Congress Party, on the other hand, has steered clear of this issue. Yes, on the issue of statehood and the restoration of statehood, both parties seem to be on the same page. But on the restoration of 370, there is a divergence. While NC wants it, the Congress has not quite explicitly said that. Now, on the campaign trail, after Khawaja Asif said what he did, even the Prime Minister, who was campaigning today in Srinagar and in Katra, he referred to this controversy in his campaign trail today and said, why is it that Pakistan and the Congress seem to be speaking the same language? The Congress's contention is, who is dragging Pakistan into what is purely a domestic affair of India, a domestic election campaign of India in Jammu and Kashmir? The question is, are Congress and the National Conference alliance partners, are they defensive when it comes to 370? And the larger question is, will any party, today the BJP is ruling at the center, tomorrow another party could be ruling at the center, will any party be in a position to talk about restoring Article 370, or is the abrogation of that article now pretty much a fait accompli?
जैसे कि उन्होंने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में कहा है, बल्कि ये एक इलेक्शन इशू बनाया हुआ उन्होंने कि स्टेटस जो है रिस्टोर होना चाहिए। तो स्टेटस अगर रिस्टोर हुआ तो काफ़ी हद तक जो एक हमारा भी बड़ा एहतजाज रहा है पिछले 4-5 साल में इस इशू पे, बिल्कुल हमारा भी ये डिमांड है।
कांग्रेस नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस के अलायंस की बल्ले बल्ले हो रही है पाकिस्तान में। पाकिस्तान के डिफेंस मिनिस्टर ने कांग्रेस नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस का खुलकर समर्थन किया है पाकिस्तान से। कांग्रेस और एनसी का एजेंडा वही है जो पाकिस्तान का एजेंडा है।
अब पाकिस्तान को हमारे से क्या लेना देना ना, हम तो पाकिस्तान का हिस्सा है ही नहीं। वो अपना मुल्क संभाले ना, हमें अपना संभालने दीजिए।
Who is Pakistan to interfere in our matters? Number 2, why is it that whenever the BJP wants something from Pakistan, a love letter comes from Pakistan like this one?
All right, so the Congress Party maintains that it does not support the restoration of Article 370. In fact, in its manifesto for Jammu and Kashmir, it does not mention Article 370 at all. But even after phase 1 of the assembly elections, which got over yesterday, the alliance has not come out with a common minimum program, or at least clarified on this divergence between the Congress and the National Conference. One party not wanting 370 to be brought back, and the other party explicitly saying that they will. The dominant narrative in the valley from the alliance's point of view has been the declaration of the National Conference, but time and time again, the Congress party's attacks have served as cover fire. Now, let's look at some of the instances in the past where Pakistan and the Congress seem to have spoken the same language. On the 12th of February 2024, Manishankar Iyer called Pakistan the biggest asset of India. Iyer said that no dialogue with Pakistan was the Modi government's biggest mistake. In January of last year, Digvijay Singh of the Congress Party had said that they talk about surgical strikes and killing so many terrorists, but there is no proof of it, questioning in a way the Balakot terrorist strikes of 2019. In 2019, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, the Congress leader at that time, he said that the Modi government violated all rules and converted a state into a union territory overnight. He was, of course, talking about the instance of Jammu and Kashmir. In November 2015, Manishankar Iyer, Congress leader, said that removing Modi from power is the only way that talks with Pakistan can move forward. And of course, in 2009, when UPA was in power, the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, which basically equated Pakistan and India both as victims of terror, saying that action on terrorism should not be linked to the composite dialogue process and that these should not be bracketed together. So let's open this up to our guests who are joining us. Mr. Kuldeep Khoda is former DGP of Jammu and Kashmir. Shaila Rashid Shora is researcher and Kashmir expert. Tuin Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP. Amitabh Dubey is national spokesperson of the Congress Party. Amitabh Dubey, let me start with you. I'm going to read out what Khawaja Asif said in that interview. That I think, and I quote, I think restoration of Article 370 is possible. National Conference has mentioned this in their manifesto. Congress and National Conference have a strong presence in J&K, a high chance of them winning the polls. Pakistan, Congress and National Conference are on the same page when it comes to 370. Are you?
Let me first reiterate, as we have on several occasions, the Congress Party has not called for the restoration of Article 370. We are demanding statehood. When a government is formed, not before that, when a government is formed, there will be a common minimum program. And rest assured, there will be no restoration of Article 370. NC spokespersons have also clarified that in their mind, they have a judicial process in mind. That is their problem. It is not anything we have to do with. But I'd like to also point out for your viewers and for everyone that the small clips of the Pakistani defense minister you've played, if you watch the whole video, and I urge everyone to watch the whole video, it starts off with the interviewer Hamid Mir actually telling him that Congress and NC stand for the restoration of Article 35 and 370, which is a false premise to begin with. The defense minister goes with this presumption and makes his comments about it. Then Hamid Mir plays a clip of Pawan Khera talking about statehood, which, as you know, we stand for. Even the Prime Minister has said that he supports eventually, in some distant future, statehood for J&K. And he goes back to the defense minister and says, see, they are supporting Article 370. So it's a complete distortion of our position. He misinformed what the defense minister, the information he placed in front of him, and the defense minister reacted as any Pakistani would.
But Mr. Dubey, can you clarify for our viewers, including viewers who are watching this broadcast in Jammu and Kashmir, clearly, you and your alliance partner, the National Conference, are on two pages when it comes to 370. National Conference has said this explicitly in their manifesto, that they are for restoration of 370. You are steering clear of that.
Yes.
How do you explain this divergence?
As you're aware, Kashmir has very divergent political parties who come together to form governments. In the past, the BJP formed a government with the PDP that had called for trade, called for the use of the Pakistani rupee in the valley. But of course, the government that was formed did not do that. Similarly, the BJP has formed a government with the National Conference. The National Conference must have had views that were different for the BJPs, but when they formed the government, they had a common minimum program. So this is just an attempt to hijack the election. The election is being fought on bread and butter issues, on economic issues, the denial of rights to the people of Jammu and Kashmir to determine their own future, the fact that 10% of the population, according to Parliament, is using narcotic drugs. 10%, 13.5 lakh people. So these are the real issues of Jammu and Kashmir, and any other conversation is an attempt to divert voters.
Okay, Tuin Sinha, this is an attempt at diversion. Why do you need the crutches of the Pakistan Defence Minister to essentially talk about an election in a part of India, an important election? Why do you need the crutches of Pakistan? I mean, the Prime Minister is referring to Khawaja Asif's statement. The Congress Party spokesperson is very clear that they are in no way for restoration of 370.
Well, good evening, Zaka. Good evening, everybody. Fact is that the only people excited about the National Conference Congress Party alliance are people across the border. In Kashmir, people are extremely skeptical. Why are they skeptical? Because across a period of 70 years, chicanery, deceit and perfidy have been the hallmark of this alliance. You know, way back in 1953, Nehru knew about the true intention of Sheikh Abdullah. What was the Kashmir conspiracy case about? What, didn't it involve Pakistan? And yet before his death, Nehru made sure that, you know, they had a pact again and he was reinstalled. What was the 1987, Rajiv Gandhi, Farooq Abdullah Accord? Again, that was the precursor to the worst form of militancy. So every time these two parties have got together, people have been extremely uncomfortable. But in this particular situation, from the day that National Conference released its manifesto on 20th August, every single day we have been asking the Congress Party to come forth and do a press conference. Now, you know, when the situation seems to be getting out of control, they have allowed select spokespersons to come out and do a different line. But in the meantime, what happened? Rahul Gandhi meets Ilhan Omar, whose position on Article 370, whose position on Article 35A, and whose position on Muslims in general in India are not only notorious, they are well known to the world. So I think the impetus, the onus is on Congress Party to come forth and hold a press conference tomorrow.
Once again, Tuin, you have done business, Tuin Sinha, You have done business with the National Conference. Omar Abdullah was ostensibly a Minister of State in Mr. Vajpayee's government back in the early 2000s. You have done business with the PDP. So it's rich coming from you that the National Conference and the Congress cannot ally. How are you any different from them?
No, there is a big difference.
What is the difference?
When we get together with a national conference, the whole premise is they need to be aligned with a nationalist thought process. When we had this alliance with PDP, obviously all of the preconditions, all of what PDP had said in the past was done away with. But 3 years down the line, the moment we realized that they could not get over the jive mentality and they could not align themselves with our nationalist thought process, we chucked the alliance. We are not like the Agadi alliance, which was there only for extortion.
Okay, so let me ask Shaila Rashid Shora, as a Kashmiri, is this the number one issue that people are talking about in the valley? Restoration of Article 370, because let's be very clear about it. No matter who is going to be in power at the center, today the BJP is, tomorrow another party could be. I don't see the possibility of any ruling party in Delhi restoring 370 through an amendment in Parliament.
Right, Zaka. The gentleman from the Congress, Mr. Amitabh Dubey, I think he made it amply clear what you are saying. BJP is not going to do it. Congress is not going to do it. Then NC and PDP will have to form a government at the center in order to restore Article 370, which is, very unlikely to happen because they might struggle to form a government even in J&K as it is today, as the situation is. Now here I want to make a differentiation. You asked me whether 370 is an issue among the people. There are people and there are people. So there are people with a small p, the aam janta, civilians, who don't care about it. They want jobs, they want some economic reconstruction, they want electricity bills issue to be resolved. For example, today when you saw Prime Minister's speech in Srinagar, do you know which point attracted the loudest cheers from him? Where he mentioned the possibility of having a solar rooftop over every home, which will bring down the electricity bills to zero. That point, Zaka, that attracted the loudest cheers if you analyze that video. Those are the issues people have. Then there are people with the capital letter P, which are politicians, which are candidates, who are saying that 370, Hindustan, Pakistan, that's not what people want. People want resolution of their daily issues. Now, if you ask me as a civilian, I am not a political figure at all now. I am a civilian. Mera kya issue hai? My issue is that there is a stray dog issue. There is a waste management issue. There are dog bites. Nobody is talking about it. There is not a single candidate who is fighting about it. I am myself working on skill development issues because there is a huge unemployment problem in Jammu and Kashmir, and there are limitations on traditional development. So I am working on giving youth skills like AI, generative AI. I don't identify at all with what the politicians are telling us. This 370, it is just another good tea. It is just another, that tonic which is being given to people, which they are not asking for. This is totally unsolicited. People have moved on, but it is up to the politicians now to solve the real problems of Jammu and Kashmir.
Shaila, if I can ask you, look, there are choices. There are fairly limited choices, I think, in this election. You have the Congress NC on the one side. You have the BJP and what many are saying, and this seems to be sort of seeping through, that the BJP is also propping up some independents, Engineer Rashid's party, Apni party, etc., etc. This is fairly the straightforward choice there before the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I don't think anyone thinks that the PDP is in a position to form a government on its own. So in this choice between, for want of a better phrase, the devil in the deep sea, what is it that the people of Kashmir are thinking?
No, I can only speak for Kashmir region. Jammu region, I don't know about.
Okay.
Kashmir, NC is the best organized party, right? PDP, because NC has the candidates, they have former MLAs who would have been sitting MLAs if the assembly weren't dissolved. They have ministers. Whereas all the PDP ministers and MLAs, they have gone to Apni party and whatever. So National Conference is the best organized party, and Congress doesn't have much of a foothold. So what I'm trying to say here, through different interventions, is that this is a free and fair election, and instead of being worked up, instead of being angry, NC and Congress people, they should be smiling, they should be happy right now, because this is not 1987. The shameful legacy of the 1987 rigging, which happened at the behest of NC and Congress, and in fact, Mufti Saab at that time was the state president of Congress, so NCPDP and Congress are all implicated in that. That has given us the insurgency. Now, my request to them is just smile, be happy. This is a free and fair election where BJP has put nation above party.
Okay.
So don't get worked up. Don't radicalize the entire population for an election which is not even a full-fledged state assembly.
Okay.
That's my
In
point.
fact, both parties have said that one of their first priorities would be the restoration of statehood. We'll see how that plays out. But I want to also bring in Mr. Kuldeep Khoda in from a security point of view, and that is that when the BJP says that the Congress and elements within the Pakistani establishment are speaking the same language, or National Conference and elements within the Pakistani establishment are speaking the same language, what sort of security paradigm does that throw open? Now, one very critical factor, Mr. Khoda, and you'd appreciate this as former DGP, is that all eyes are on whether the election in Kashmir will be violence-free. And I'm happy to report that the first phase, which happened yesterday, has been by and large free of any major violent incident. So that in itself is a big check of the box, if you will, because 370 had been abrogated. People said, you know, there'll be a bloodbath there. There were recent concerns about increased terrorist activity in Jammu. Again, that doesn't seem to have hampered either the voter turnout or the overall participation of people in the polls itself. So that in itself, how much of a worry is it that the language that's being spoken might be seen as provocative by certain sections and therefore might jeopardize the peaceful conduct of the polls?
No, as far as polling is concerned, the polling has been held previously also. I can refer back to 2008 when there was serious agitation both in Jammu region and Kashmir region, when the land row agitation started, and it involved the entire state that time. The elections which followed the turmoil of 2008 were held very peacefully, because the people generally believe in ensuring that the electoral process should go through, because that is in the overall interest of the people of the state. They have, as Madam Shora has pointed out, they have lots of issues which were not getting addressed. Now, through the public representatives, they will get addressed, and they are very hopeful that a well-established political government will be established, which can cater for their problems, which they have been facing over last so many years. As far as the security situation is concerned, I am very positive, and I can assure you that the elections, the remaining two phases, also will go incident-free. And in any case, if there is an incident, it will be in some remote area which are not addressed because security forces cannot be present everywhere. Sometimes some odd incident takes place, but on the whole, the electoral process will be smooth, incident-free, and people will get a good government at the end of it. And as far as the political interference in this situation because of their provocative statements is concerned, let me elaborate here that in the present state of affairs, the internal security and the public order is with the center, and that will continue to be so with the formation of the political government. So that has been done with a view to ensure that the command and control over the security forces remains unified, and there is no dual authority to control the police and the paramilitary forces by two separate political forces.
So you're saying even if there were to be an elected state government tomorrow, both police and paramilitary, the security, internal security of Jammu and Kashmir will still rest with the LG?
Absolutely. That's already, the notification has been already issued some time back.
Okay.
And that's going to continue as such. And that's going to ensure that the security situation remains well under control and continues to function as it has been, and there has been huge improvement after the imposition of the president's rule and after revocation of 370. and that security situation will continue to improve because
that's what the data.
apparatus.
That's what the data also suggests. And as per a written reply by
Absolutely.
the Home Ministry in the last session of Parliament, the number of terror incidents after the abrogation of Article 370 in 5 years has come down quite substantially. It's now in double digits. It used to be in triple digits before that. But I want to go back to the political spokespersons and Mr. Dubey of the Congress Party. I just want to read out 3 or 4 statements from mainstream Pakistani politicians which seem to mirror what the Congress Party and Congress leaders have been saying. In May of 2024, Chaudhry Fahad Hussain, who was then a Pakistan minister, had said that Rahul Gandhi and his mindset is praiseworthy. In February of 2020, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who was then Foreign Minister of Pakistan, had said that he had in fact cited the doubts raised by the Congress Party over the Pulwama attack. In September of 2019, Imran Khan, then former Prime Minister of Pakistan back then, he cited the Congress's statement on curfew in Jammu and Kashmir. He also cited the Congress's allegation of RSS training terrorists. Does it not worry you, Mr. Dubey, that mainstream Pakistani politicians are using the Congress to fire off the Congress's shoulder against the BJP?
As I said, the defense minister's comment, of course, was based on something being fed to him. I have nothing to say about what individual Pakistanis want to say or not. They have no locus standi about affairs in Jammu and Kashmir and India, so they feel to express their opinions in Pakistan as they wish. But I'll tell you what worries me. Sheila Rashid made a comment. For many years, the PDP and the NC have been used by mainstream Indian parties, basically the Congress and the BJP, as partners in Kashmir to bring people into the mainstream. But as you yourself said, all of a sudden, we suddenly have people like Engineer Rashid. We have the Jamaat-e-Islami popping up with candidates, with campaigns, with funding. What concerns me is, what are the forces pushing these into the mainstream? Are these people who are going to integrate Kashmir with India further? Or are these separatist forces that are going to go the other way? So these are very serious questions.
Who are these forces who are?
Well, you yourself said it's the BJP.
No, I didn't say that.
No.
You did. Hang on.
You can go back.
Don't put words in my mouth. I said there is a section within Kashmir which seems to think that.
Yes. So these are very valid concerns. How are these forces suddenly being allowed to? How is Amritpal suddenly coming up in? So these are my concern. Is that these are James Bond-like maneuvers by some sections that are very, very likely to backfire. And the Indian state and whoever is behind them has to be very careful about where this is heading. We've seen what's happened in Manipur.
You have previously
that happened in Manipur
worked with
because
PDP,
of this kind of
worked with National Conference. Now you're sidelining those mainstream political parties in Kashmir, and instead, some people, some sections in Kashmir seem to think that you guys have propped up Engineer Rashid and Apni Party and others.
Let me say this very categorically. We have nothing to do with Engineer Rashid. In fact, that entire letter, of the state president of BJP asking our Karyakartas to greet him was a fake news, a concocted news spread by National Conference, Congress Party Alliance. When you mention about, the Congress Party's common thought process with Pakistan, it's not an imagination. I will tell you why Congress Party at different junctures has helped Pakistan. When was the abrogation of Article 370 done? The bill was introduced on 5th August 2019. On 24th August, you can check it on yourself as a journalist. On 24th August, Rahul Gandhi had resigned. After the 2019 defeat. 24th August was the first meeting of CWC to appoint a new leader. They could not. To distract attention, at 8:30 p.m. at night, Rahul Gandhi came forward and made a ridiculous statement saying that there is bloodshed in the valley without any authentication. That lie was utilized by Pakistan to browbeat India for the next 5 to 6 weeks diplomatically. So, there are various ways in which Congress tends to help Pakistan. I don't know whether there is a partnership or whether, there is just a meeting of minds or wherever, but it's a fact. It's a fact. It's not imagination, it's a fact. I have just given you one example. You yourself pointed out 3 or 4 different examples.
Okay, so let me go back to Sheila Rashid Shora. Sheila, it comes back to if the mainstream parties, and for the last 20 years or so, or maybe even longer than that, the mainstream Kashmir parties were the PDP and the National Conference. The National Conference today is in an alliance with the Congress Party. The PDP is fighting on its own. This sidelining or pushing to the margins of the mainstream parties on the rise of the likes of an Engineer Rashid, Apni Party, Jamaat-e-Islami, etc. Is that worrying?
I will answer this in 5 points. First of all, as far as Rashid is concerned, he was already a 2-3 term MLA. He has already served 2-3 terms as an MLA. He's somebody who is sworn on the Constitution of India, number one. Number two, as far as Jamaat-e-Islami is concerned, they are not contesting as an organization because it is a banned organization. However, ECI, Election Commission of India, is not BJP. They have to allow every citizen of India to contest unless and until the individual concerned is convicted for 2 or more years, in which case he will be disqualified, right? That is another thing. So the third thing I want to say is that these dynasty parties, with all due respect to the individuals who are in these parties, I mean no disrespect, इनको लगता है कि इनका बर्थ राइट है, इनको लगता है हमारा जो है पैदाइशी हक है पॉलिटिक्स के ऊपर, उसके बाद जो भी आएगा वो जो है वो एजेंट है बीजेपी का. दिस इज अ वेरी रॉन्ग थॉट प्रोसेस. यू डोंट हैव एनी बर्थ राइट. फोर्थ थिंग, ये जो ये चीज बोली जा रही है कि दिस इज एन एजेंट, दैट इज एन एजेंट, what these parties have done, you know, we often we fault the Hurriyat, right? We often blame the Hurriyat for enforcing poll boycott and doing patrao and, you know, not allowing people to vote. What we should also know is that on many occasions, it was the mainstream parties winning candidates who ensured poll boycotts. ये लोगों को पैसे देते थे पथराव करने के लिए, mainstream की बात कर रही हूँ. They used to ensure poll boycotts by doing patrao, so that nobody else comes to power. That is how they have held on to the chair. Now, fifth and last thing that I want to tell them is that their wish has been granted. For the last 9-10 months, they have been demanding democracy and elections. My friends, this is what democracy looks like. You go to Muzaffarnagar, if there is a candidate named Abdul Halim, there will be 10 other candidates named Abdul Halim who will also file the nomination in order to, you know, create confusion. This is how elections happen. However, National Conference, Congress, these are registered parties. इनका symbol है अपना. People have a right to vote for them as they did in the Lok Sabha election. Why don't I see one word of appreciation from India Alliance partners that elections are free and fair and transparent. Even people sitting in Tihar jail are winning by record margins. This is a celebration of democracy. This is something we should be proud of. This is what democracy unfortunately looks like. It looks messy. But democracy is not famed for being orderly or disciplined. This is what democracy looks like. What do you do about it?
I think the fact that we've had 60% plus voter turnout in yesterday's phase and by and large incident-free, violence-free in itself is a big token of moving forward as far as Kashmir is concerned, as far as the people there are concerned. Mr. Khoda, I'll give you the final word. Do you see this whole, you know, the election being a slap in the face of what for the last 30 years was a separatist narrative, a secessionist narrative? There was a time, as Shaila said, suddenly one fine day, Mr. Gilani or Mr. Mirwais would say, we are boycotting the polls. Today, no one is talking about boycotting the polls. Everybody is participating in the polls. More than 61% voted yesterday, and I believe that figure is going to go up. I believe the same range you will find in the next two phases as well. Again, without any major incident of violence in itself is testament to the fact that Naya Kashmir does not want to go down the secessionist or the separatist way.
Absolutely. In fact, the next two phases is going to witness a bigger turnout than first phase. For various reasons, including the areas which are going to vote during next two phases. Generally, in the past elections, there has been larger turnout in those areas. So the percentage is likely to go up. And beyond that, as far as the forces which have combined and have joined the election fray, that is very laudable, because if some separatists who were earlier boycotting the polls, if they decide to join this time the electoral process, under the oath of constitution, we should welcome it and we should encourage the greater participation. This time, as you rightly pointed out, there has been no election boycott call. That in itself is a very encouraging trend, and that indicates the mind of the people as to how the things are going to be and how the things are shaping. So we should welcome it as far as the apprehension is concerned that some MLA, after getting elected, is going to be behaving in anti-national manner. There are enough laws to deal with them, and I'm sure that none of the elected MLAs is going to behave like that. Engineer Rashid has been MLA twice before that. And he behaved well as far as the constitutional process is concerned. There are allegations against him, on funding and other things.
Yeah.
But that's a separate issue, and he's been dealt with, and he was in prison. So we should not get apprehensive. We should welcome people joining from across all thoughts, joining the electoral fray. That is the real democracy, and the taste of democracy lies in that.
All right, Mr. Khoda, Sheila Rashid, and of course, Tuin Sena and Amitabh Dubey, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see how this plays out, the remainder of the two phases of elections in Kashmir, and of course, whether or not all of these comments from Pakistani politicians, whether that finds resonance, this whole business of restoring 370, whether that finds resonance or have the people of Kashmir moved on, that is something that we will keep an eye out on. In a major escalation in the Middle East, the last 2 days have seen targeted technology strikes on the Hezbollah network in Lebanon, exploding communication devices. It first started off with pagers on Tuesday. It continued with exploding walkie-talkies and solar power systems on Wednesday. It's now killed close to 30 people and injured over 3,000, and that is in two separate waves of attacks. Hezbollah has described it as an Israeli breach of the militant group's communications and vowed retaliatory attacks. Meanwhile, Iran, which backs Hezbollah, has accused the Netanyahu government of mass murder and terrorism. Meanwhile, international pressure continues to mount on Israel as the United Nations General Assembly has passed a resolution with an overwhelming margin to demand an end to Israel's occupation of Palestine and to put an end to the war with Gaza. While the United States has opposed that resolution, India, Australia, the UK were among 40-odd countries which abstained as the resolution was adopted with 124 votes.
From pager bombs to exploding walkie-talkies. In 48 hours, a suspected double attack by Israel has left Hezbollah shaken to the core. How was it pulled off? What will Hezbollah do next? And what does it mean for an already tense Middle East? The first wave of explosions occurred on the 17th of September when pagers used by Hezbollah operatives started simultaneously exploding across Lebanon. The pagers had received messages that appeared to be coming from Hezbollah's leadership. The messages instead appeared to trigger the devices to detonate. By the end of the day, at least a dozen people were dead and more than 3,000 were wounded. Similar scenes of chaos played out across Lebanon the very next day as well. This time, walkie-talkies exploded suddenly, including near a funeral for one of the victims of the previous day's attack. At least 20 people were killed and around 450 injured in the second wave of attacks. The pagers and walkie-talkies were purchased months ago by Hezbollah, which doesn't trust mobile phones. While fingers are being pointed at Israel, how did they manage to rig the devices in the first place? In a televised speech on the 13th of February, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah warned supporters that their phones were more dangerous than Israeli spies, saying that they should bury, break or lock them in an iron box. So the group opted to distribute pagers to members instead. Hezbollah ordered 5,000 pagers from Taiwan-based Gold Apollo, which were brought into the country earlier this year. But Gold Apollo said the devices were made by BAC, a Budapest-based firm that has the rights to use Gold Apollo's brand but is otherwise independent. But according to a report in the New York Times, BAC Consulting was actually an Israeli shell company. The report says that while the company did produce regular pagers for other clients, those manufactured for Hezbollah were produced separately. They contained batteries laced with explosives. The pagers began to be shipped to Lebanon in 2022, but supply was increased after Nasrallah denounced the use of cell phones as operationally unsafe. Meanwhile, a Japanese handheld radio manufacturer has distanced itself from walkie-talkies bearing its logo that exploded in Lebanon. The device appears to be ICVA2 transceivers made by ICOM, an Osaka-based telecommunications manufacturer. But ICOM says it discontinued production of the devices a decade ago. According to reports, Israel's original plan was to detonate the pagers and the walkie-talkies as an opening blow in an all-out war against Hezbollah. Mossad had planned to use the booby-trap devices to cripple the group. But lately, Israel's leadership feared that Hezbollah might discover the plan. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his top ministers and military and intelligence heads decided to act early instead of taking the risk of being detected. For Israel, it was a use it or lose it moment. US President Joe Biden's top advisor Amos Hochstein visited Israel a day before the pager attacks and met with senior officials, but they reportedly did not tell him about the operation. Then, minutes before the pager started exploding, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant called his American counterpart Lloyd Austin and told him that Israel was about to conduct an operation in Lebanon but refused to give any specific details. US officials said they did not see Gallant's call as a serious prior notice.
The United States did not know about, nor was it involved in these incidents, and we're still gathering the information and gathering the facts. Broadly speaking, we've been very clear, and we remain very clear, about the importance of all parties avoiding any steps that could further escalate the conflict that we're trying to resolve in Gaza, to see it spread to other fronts.
The booby-trapped pagers and walkie-talkies were the latest salvo in the decades-long conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, which is based across the border in Lebanon. The tensions escalated after the war began in the Gaza Strip on the 7th of October. The timing of the explosions, which followed Israel's announcement of extended military operations along the Lebanon border, has fueled speculation that this was a deliberate move by the spy agency Mossad.
This is an act of aggression against non-combatants, community people. Even if some of them are combatants, but this is a non-discriminatory act of attack. And I think that, the use of this non-discriminatory force or attacks, which clearly will affect civilians, is something, in my mind, is something against international humanitarian law.
They add to the pressure on Hezbollah to retaliate against Israel, but at the same time, severely limit its military options. The group will be carefully calculating its next steps against Israel. There will also be widespread paranoia within the group regarding what else Israel may have been able to sabotage. This in turn lowers morale among Hezbollah's rank and undermines the group's clout in Lebanon. Yet, at this point, it is not in Hezbollah's interest to engage in action that could lead to a full-on war with Israel.
But let's try and make sense of these pager attacks and then subsequently the walkie-talkie attacks. It is the single biggest instance of serial bomb blasts that have happened in Lebanon, allegedly at the behest of Israel, first through the pagers and then through walkie-talkies. What may be the consequences of such an attack? Behnam Ben Taleblu is a senior research fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you very much, Mr. Taleblu, for speaking with us. First of all, the scale of these attacks, the pager attacks that happened on Tuesday and then subsequently the walkie-talkie attacks. What do you make of the scale of these attacks? How did Israel manage to do this, and that too under the radar, even though officially no one's accepting it?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. The scale, but also the scope is quite impressive here. It means that from an intelligence standpoint, the Israelis had seen the shift from cell phone or mobile communications to these somewhat lower tech methods of communications, be it first beepers and then walkie-talkie radios, and then been able to follow, allegedly, if one indeed does believe it is Israel, the supply chains that fed Hezbollah's procurement of these devices from abroad, and were able to tap into that undetected, change some of the communications technologies to either make it more permissive to be monitored or actually to insert allegedly explosive material into it, and to be able to detonate these devices on 2 different days, but at the same time. So it shows, A, how punctured the Hezbollah's domestic security forces as well as procurement chains are and supply chains are, as well as 2, how capable Israel is, and how 3, how sincere it is when it says that it's trying to move its 60 to 80,000 internally displaced persons back to their northern border to get a semblance of a new normal back there, and to get Hezbollah to stop firing at them. Because the ultimate goal here, in my view, is to get Hezbollah to understand that it can't win this confrontation despite the blows that it seeks to land.
But Mr. Taleblu, Hassan Nasrallah has spoken just moments ago. He's given a televised address. What are the highlights of what he said? And the question now on everyone's minds, is how is Hezbollah going to respond?
Indeed, and this may get into a second element of Israeli strategy here, which is the nature of of Hezbollah's response. Yesterday, Reuters reported that Hezbollah had engaged in a rocket attack against what they alleged was a artillery position of the Israeli Defense Forces in the north of that country. While that attack hasn't been officially confirmed, it's interesting that Hezbollah has not launched some kind of an all-out, all-scale war against Israel in this time. One reason why that may actually not play well for the Israeli strategy here is that Israel may have hoped that in an attempt to have Hezbollah save face, they would react in such a way that would cause them to lose their head. So I think Hezbollah's speech is going to be vitriolic, full of invective, full of talk about revenge. These are classic themes when looking at Hassan Nasrallah's speeches, particularly post-October 7th. Lest we forget, on October 8th, Hezbollah was the first of Iran-backed proxies to enter the fight against Israel. But in terms of reality, I think Hezbollah in the short to medium term is going to try to continue the tit-for-tat and avoid playing into what potentially they may assess to be a larger trap to get them to react bigger so that Israel can respond even harder.
But Mr. Tayibe, next week is the UN General Assembly. We know that Netanyahu is going to be there in New York. He's going to meet with President Biden as well as others. The United States clearly wants a ceasefire, and it's been trying really hard to get a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. That's not been forthcoming. Now you have a situation where you can potentially look at a two-front war, Israel versus Hamas in the south and Israel versus Hezbollah in the north. Is Israel ready for that, and is the world and America ready for that?
Well, indeed, as we've seen from literally the day after October 7th, the second front of this war opened up on October 8th. And depending on how you count, there are about 6 or 7 fronts active against the Israelis. Admittedly, different types of weapons, admittedly, different types of targets, and admittedly, different groups. But whether it's the Islamic Republic of Iran or any of its myriad proxy networks, be it operating in the West Bank, in Lebanon, via Syria, via Iraq, or even via Yemen, this is a larger multi-front war that the Islamic Republic has intentionally brought to Israel's doorstep. So whether or not Israel is ready politically or logistically is an entirely separate question from this war is already on its doorstep. And that's why I think any kind of distance, be it political, be it logistic, between Israel and America as they push back on, or as Israel pushbacks on shared adversaries of the U.S. and of Israel in the region would be counterproductive and only redound to the dividend of someone else who will be at the UNGA at least on Tuesday, which is the Iranian President, Mr. Pezeshkian.
I want to get a final question from you. How do you see the foreseeable sort of trajectory of this war? Because clearly one view is that Netanyahu is shifting the goalpost. First, of course, it was to decapitate Hamas, to ensure that Hamas doesn't have the capability to launch the attack that it did on the 7th of October last year. That then changed to the Philadelphia corridor to push Hamas and everybody out of Gaza. Now this whole thing about repopulating the northern territories, and that opens up a front with Hezbollah. We have seen week in, week out the kind of protests against Netanyahu. The view, including within folks in the Biden administration, is that Mr. Netanyahu is sort of changing the goalpost for his own political survival. So what's the foreseeable future, the next 2 months of this war? What is it looking like ahead of the U.S. election?
Well, it's an important question, but all trend lines indicate that Israel is indeed interested in doubling down on the north and slowly trying to phase down operations in the south. But lest we forget, many of the things that you mentioned, whether it's the Philadelphia corridor or the different cities that they were pushing back on, first Gaza City, then Khan Yunis, then ultimately Rafah, and then again, there was significant political tension between the Netanyahu government and the Biden administration here over the scale and the scope of the IDF operations in Rafah. But again, based on public reporting, that it seems to be winding down. Those are more tactical goals. I think the strategic goals for Israel post-October 7 remains the same, which is the destruction of Hamas to the extent that they don't have a military capability to be able to pose the same kind of threat that they posed to Israel on October 6 and October 7, and then ultimately to get the hostages back. And that is where there is significant domestic tension between much of the population and the Netanyahu cabinet within Israel. But as things go to the north, actually that's where there is still significant popular support for, making sure the internally displaced persons can not only go back to the north, but also feel safe in the north. And again, that was something that happened because of Iran-backed proxies choosing to enter the war on Israel's north before Israel even commenced military operations to its south.
All right, Mr. Behnam Ben Tayibe, thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Thank you for your time.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be embarking on a landmark 3-day visit to the United States of America. Mr. Modi would be first going to Wilmington in Delaware for a Quad Leaders Summit. On September the 22nd, the Prime Minister will be in New York, where he would hold a big community event for the Indian diaspora in Long Island. On the 23rd of September, the Prime Minister will be attending the UNGA's Summit of the Future. CNN News 18 will be in the US to track every engagement of the Prime Minister.
False promise. It's absolutely that we believe in. It is what we consider as the right of every citizen of Jammu and Kashmir. It is something that was promised to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It was something that was given by the Parliament of India to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So we see no wrong in asking for our own right. 2, the abrogation of Article 370 was done in absence of any elected government, any elected representative, any elected member from the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. So, and coming back to what the BJP spokesperson was saying about Congress, they should actually ask themselves, when they made an alliance with the PDP in 2014, what was PDP's manifesto? Were they against Article 370? No. They talked about self-rule. They endorsed the 370. They spoke about talking with Pakistan. They spoke about trade with Pakistan. Why did the BJP form the government with them? Why was why was
I'm sure Rohan Gupta, you'd like to respond to that. That's a very valid question being posed by Nazrullah.
Absolutely. I don't shy away from the questions, and I will answer the question. But after that, I need answer from Congress and NC board. See, there is a difference between pre-poll alliance and a post-poll alliance. That was the election where there was no clear-cut majority to any party. And after the elections, if you form the government, obviously there will be common minimum program where you don't agree with all the points. But when you go into pre-poll alliance, it is a very clear-cut thing that both the parties align in their manifesto. And that is the question Congress party is not able to answer. Akanksha, it's not about one state. Again, I am telling you, Jammu Kashmir is a very crucial state to us. Maybe NC can have their own compulsions. But the question is to Congress party, what is their stand? They are not very clear on 370. They are dilly-dallying both the seas. You cannot go do like that. Because if Pakistan is supporting, endorsing your views, there is something seriously wrong with your view. Same way, if Pannu, the terrorist, he supports Congress party leaders' views, then there is something serious with their views. So that question needs to be asked, and there should be.
And that's a question I'll be taking from Ashpreet, but let me quickly go across to Lieutenant General Dua. Sir, thank you so much for so patiently awaiting your turn. Since I was referring to what we've seen happen to that resolution in the year 2000, do you think that such a new promise is only based on a failed legacy, since we've seen what happened to that resolution, and that the priorities of the electorate of Jammu and Kashmir have already changed? They know what the security apparatus was like prior to the abrogation of Article 370. Do you not think that this is also misleading the people of Jammu and Kashmir?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity after all the politics is done. Allow me to start by saying, that unlike the Pakistan army, Indian army is totally apolitical. So I will steer clear of any political views. About the security situation.
Rohan, if I could begin with you, first of all, I'm sure the Congress would say that no such promise of, returning to Article 370 has been made in the Congress manifesto. Then why be concerned about what the Pakistan Defence Minister is saying?
See, you cannot just say that it is not there in your manifesto. You are fighting this election in pre-poll alliance. You have seen National Conference Manifesto. They are talking about talks with Pakistan, trade with Pakistan, 360, 370. NC's manifesto is very clear. When you are fighting election in pre-poll alliance, that clearly shows what are your views. And these are not my words. These are words of Pakistan Defence Minister, where he clearly says, he clearly endorses views of Congress and NC. So I think the question is that why our opposition, why our enemies are supporting your views. This is the first time in history of Indian politics the opposition party is supported by our enemy, and still they have no answer for that. So I think there are questions which Congress party.
Sir, a lot of focus on Gaganyaan. Where do things stand, sir? Several tests that have been carried out. Crucial one coming up in December.
Yeah, Gaganyaan has many what you call as test missions like test vehicle mission, unmanned missions. Before we have the manned mission. So these are all activities are going on for parachute testing with dropping from helicopter, from aircraft, and also preparing the subsystems for the first unmanned mission and the subsequent unmanned missions. Anyway, subsystems are getting ready. So all these activities are going on in full steam.
So obviously the next focus has been around India's Bharat Antariksh Station, India's space station. We understand the model is before the government now for approval. What really stands out, sir, from whatever you've seen so far?
No, that is, see, if you want to have a long duration stay in a weightlessness condition, we cannot use a small capsule. We need a huge space where other facilities are available like life support system. You need to have exercise and other daily systems like waste management. So it's like a house in space. So it has to be more volume. And again, you cannot launch a space station in one launch vehicle. Like the International Space Station. There are so many space shuttle launches as well as Russian launches to build it.
One of India's most ambitious space project is the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, India's space station, and this is the model that ISRO has displayed. This is something that has already been submitted to the government, the design model of this, and ISRO is waiting for approval. And by 2035, ISRO plans to put up this space station in low Earth orbit, and this will take place in multiple launches. This whole setup has to be put up in space after taking all these objects in multiple launches by ISRO. What this essentially will do is that this space station will be set up, and just like any other space station, including the International Space Station, this will have a docking system where Indian astronauts will be able to reach low Earth orbit in space and then enter the space station and spend multiple days there. In fact, there are newer technologies that ISRO plans to have in this space station. They are saying that this new technology would be on-orbit refueling, which means that there could be extended period of functioning of this space station. They are also saying that it will have a micro meteoroid protection system. That's a hazard that any space station or satellite has. They are saying it will have a protection system. It will also have space habitat design, radiation monitoring and protection, and robotic support elements. Well, Gaganyaan mission is the crucial one that all focuses on right now, but ISRO is also working on Chandrayaan 4, another ambitious mission of ISRO to collect sample and bring it back to Earth. It's a sample return mission, and this is the proposed module for Chandrayaan 4. The designs have already been submitted to the Government of India and it's waiting for approval. This will have a lander just like in the Chandrayaan 3 mission. There will also be a rover. What is special about this is that it will collect samples of rock and soil from the lunar surface, bring it back to the lander, and then the module will carry it to the propulsion module, which will then return the sample to Earth. Well, there are two crucial challenges in a mission of this nature, sample return mission, and two of them have already been in a way successfully demonstrated by ISRO. During Chandrayaan 3, ISRO tried the hop experiment. Essentially, this lander makes a hop, which showed ISRO that it can restart the lander and then ensure that its engines fire and it can move away or in a way take off from the lunar surface. The other crucial experiment that it also carried out during Chandrayaan 3 is ensuring that the propulsion module moves from the lunar orbit to the Earth orbit. And that's something that they have done in Chandrayaan 3. So some of the crucial stages for Chandrayaan 4 already experimented in a way demonstrated by ISRO.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be embarking on a landmark 3-day visit to the United States of America. Mr. Modi would be first going to Wilmington in Delaware for a Quad Leaders Summit. On September the 22nd, the Prime Minister will be in New York, where he would hold a big community event for the Indian diaspora in Long Island. On the 23rd of September, the Prime Minister will be attending the UNGA's Summit of the Future. CNN News 18 will be in the US to track every engagement of the Prime Minister.
Presented by sir, that why Pakistan is happy with their stance. If your enemy is happy with your stance, it means that stance is wrong. So I think Congress will have to come clean what is their clear-cut agenda for future. Otherwise, people of the country will not leave them.
All right, Ashpreet Khadiyal, let's have it straight from the horse's mouth. What explains the Congress party's silence when all of this chatter is going on? We've heard National Conference's view. It's very much on the manifesto, and you may say that you've not made any such promise, but you're very much in alliance with the NC. So what explains the silence?
Well, the logic that has been given by the Bharatiya Janata Party and the spokesperson here is that a person has supported your statement, therefore you are responsible for that. That is the logic that they've given. First and foremost, if Mr. Modi gives a statement and an ABC or any sort of person with any sort of history, background, character comments upon it, supports the statement of Mr. Modi, would it have anything to do with Mr. Modi? Would Mr. Modi be held responsible for that? Would he be accountable for that? And if you do give this logic and if you're ready to implement it on yourself, I won't give you examples of these kind of people supporting your statements. I'll give you example of Tariq Ahmed Mir, a person who was given ticket by the Bharatiya Janata Party in 2014, who was arrested in 2020 by the NIA because he was procuring weapons for Hizbul Mujahideen commander Naveed Babu. I'll give you an example of Talib Hussain Shah, the BJP's office bearer who was Lashkar-e-Taiba's terrorist, who was captured by the locals. I'll give an example of Dhruv Saxena, 2017 BJP office bearer who was found to have links with the ISI.
All right, I'm going to actually take those examples from Rohan Gupta, but you've still not answered my question. Why not go on record and condemn everything that is being said by Khawaja Asif today?
Well, number one, it has nothing. I mean, the logic that I've given makes it crystal clear as to why we do not have to respond to that. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do
with you when you are in an alliance with NC that has promised to come back or return to Article 370. What is the Congress position is very important. You release your manifesto on last day of campaigning. Still, nobody knows if you will continue your support as far as NC is concerned when it comes to the promise of returning to Article 370. There's been no talk about that. There's been no condemnation. This when Rahul Gandhi himself said that they do not approve of the kind of terror that is emanating from Pakistan. And so what is your position when it comes to trade and dialogue with Pakistan, something that's been endorsed in the NC manifesto?
Our position is one, that the BJP gives us Pegasus for a day so that we can tell who gives a direction from here, and it gets followed in Pakistan by the top leadership, by the ministers. Number two, we all remember the Pakistan frame that the BJP has when Mr. Modi went to Pakistan, hugged Nawaz Sharif, the then Prime Minister, had Kashmiri chai with him, had biryani with him, broke the protocol, sat in his chopper. The very
Ashpreet, you have still not answered the question. You are harping back to what happened in the past. Two wrongs will not make a right.
Nobody is saying that. I'm answering a question. It has nothing to do with us. It's not in our manifesto. We haven't said it. However, the BJP... But
you are in alliance with NC. Rohan Gupta, please go ahead.
The BJP had terrorists in their party.
Okay, what about giving tickets to terrorists? Rohan Gupta.
A very simple question to Congress spokesperson, and he is not answering the question because he doesn't know the answer. See, the question is very, very simple. When you are in triple alliance with somebody and they declare the manifesto, either you have to say you are with them or you are not with them. You cannot be everywhere. They are very, very clear. NC's manifesto has been very clear. They want separate flag. They will return Article 3.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. We interviewed Ranil Wickremesinghe